And we are back. Hey, what's up? There he is.
Hello.
New York Rick. Boom.
We're back.
The MMA After Hour Time, exclusively on Twitter. What a show. What a day. Can let my hair down a little bit. I'm exhausted. I'm emotionally spent, but we have some answers to give out to some questions.
Here's the first question, and I think it's apropos, and I think it's the question of the day. Is Conor, once again 2 steps ahead of everyone, is the beef with Paulie Malignaggi real, contrived, somewhere in between? Where do we land on this?
Okay. He is always 2 to 3 steps ahead. He is always planning his next, 2-3 fights. That's part of the brilliance. That's what Chael did so well. That's what the greats do, right? The Paulie thing, is it real or not? I mean, they were never the best of friends. They had their issues from the get-go. Yeah, I do believe that there is some reality to it. Is this a set? Look, here's my basic take on the whole thing. Do we really care if it was a knockdown or a knockout or a push? I don't think anyone really will change their opinion on the fight based on what transpired in those, 15 seconds. I think what's interesting to talk about, sparring ethics, the NDA, the secrecy, all that stuff and more. And, oh, by the way, could this lead to a fight between the two? And clearly there's an incredible amount of interest in their feud, if you want to call it that, or in their story. So, it's interesting. You look at the Twitter feed. Conor's not the one who tweeted those 2 photos. It was Dave Fogarty, the troublemaker photographer. And let me give him a shout out, because there was some talk about him coming on the show, but again, everything's being kept under wraps. At David GBD, he's Conor's personal photographer over at the Mac Life. He's the one that actually tweeted the 2 photos that really caused this storm.
All started, yeah.
Conor didn't do it. I don't know if that was done on purpose or not, but I think if someone said to me, like, what do you think of this? I think this is great for everyone. I think 3 weeks before the fight, people was talking about it. People were debating it. Gilbert has a take. Andre Berto has a take. Everyone's talking about this story. It's another layer going into this week. Open workouts, Thursday Floyd, Friday Conor. This is all good. And there were some reports of slow ticket sales, and I'm assuming that things have picked up. And I do think to a certain degree they've overpriced them, and I think that the MMA fan isn't used to paying this amount for tickets, and I think the Irish fan flying over, it's expensive to go from Ireland to Las Vegas. It's asking a lot, but in the end, this is all good for the promotion, for the pay-per-view, for the pockets of everyone involved. That's really my take on it. I mean, like, are we gonna debate like, knockdown? No, sparring ethics, things like that, interesting. But what's the general takeaway? This is great for everyone. I don't think that there's a loser here. Paulie gets to talk about this on the Showtime broadcast. Showtime has Paulie. Showtime is the pay-per-view provider. People are talking about Conor. Floyd is the only one who hasn't really weighed in, and he's still going to make.
He just gets to sit back and collect the checks.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I think it's all good, and it's all part of this story. When we look back, we're going to be like, you remember that crazy tour that they went on, and like the polar bear coat, and you remember that crazy thing with Paulie for a week, where people were talking about if it was a knockdown and the pictures and all that, and who knows what's to come in the next 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, when they do Paulie versus Conor at MSG, then we'll definitely be talking about that, and we'll be rolling back to our clip from you and Paulie talking right after. Okay, do you think anybody looks bad in this scenario? Do you think, okay, let's frame it this way. If Paulie actually did get knocked down, if that is something that becomes the case, does Paulie look bad? And then on the other side of it, if they release the full footage and Paulie is saying Conor looks not ready for the fight as he's asserting now, does anybody look bad in this scenario?
Well, I actually said on Thursday's MMA Beat that I was told from some people not in Conor's camp, people around, that he was doing very well, that he continued to improve as far as sparring, that he was doing well against Paulie and other sparring partners. If somehow the 12 rounds get leaked, this fight, this sparring session gets leaked, and Conor is completely smoking him, and he does knock him down, all this stuff, yeah, I mean, I guess that looks pretty bad. Like, I mean,
that looks bad for Paulie for
100%.
Sure. And I also think if Paulie is presenting it, and I didn't get the sense that he was trying to downplay Conor. I think he was giving him credit where he felt it was due. Obviously, he was ticked off, and obviously he has a horse in the race himself. But he was saying that, look, he was hanging in there for those first 7 rounds. Or what was it, 5 rounds? He fully admitted that. And I think if it comes out that Conor is looking good, it could hurt. It could have hurt Paulie's stock, I think. And I also think...
I don't think that footage is coming out. For everyone involved, I don't see any point of it coming out. I mean...
Well, it's way better if it doesn't.
Yeah, it's way better. I mean, unless they're going to sell it, you know, on McGregor-Malignaggi.com, what's the point? It's better to leave this... Unless someone steals this tape and leaks it to TMZ or something, I don't see how it's better for this to remain a mystery, and everyone debates it.
I agree.
This is part of the barbershop...
It's better for both of them,
aspect of this fight. I can see, you know... men sitting around saying like, oh, you see what Conor did? You see how Paulie went out and did this interview and he spoke too much and he had loose lips. Oh, but Conor put that photo out there and blah, 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 blah. And it was a knockdown. Look at the ref where he's standing. I mean, people are debating this. I'd be happy to debate. I mean, it's just fun.
But all this leads back to that original question, which is, could they have calculated this? It seems very calculable. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't.
Together, like Paulie and Conor coming together?
Hey, you release a few picks. I do a few interviews. We got ourselves.
I don't want to accuse anyone of like conspiring. Again,
it's not a conspiracy. There's nobody who gets hurt in
together.
This.
But again, what I will say is, I don't think that there's a loser.
Yeah, looks good for everybody for now. If anything gets out, then the story changes.
Sure, exactly.
From our friend Jason Jones,
my man,
wanted to talk about Smiling Sam Alvey.
Yeah.
7 fights in 14 months, almost a calendar year. 7 fights in. Is he fighting too much? And thoughts on him fighting Vitor Belfort?
I mean, I like the fact that he called him out. Vitor has responded.
Yep. Vitor's response is great.
Unfortunately for Sam, the story of that fight was just, Rashad Evans and not looking great. Yep. And let's be honest, it wasn't the greatest fight of all time, but Sam did what he had to do, and it was the biggest high-profile win of his career. Yeah, sure. Go after Vitor. Why not? Do I think he's fighting too much? I mean, he's not getting like brutally knocked out. He doesn't seem to be losing a step.
Yeah.
Some guys like to fight. I mean, 7 and 14 months.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. We've seen it. We've seen it get done. He's like the classic FS1 fighter. It's like I feel like they never put him on pay-per-view. It's always on like those fight nights, somewhere in like the middle of the card.
Find a niche. Be that guy.
He's a great.
Keep racking him up.
Great personality. But unfortunately for him, the biggest win of his career, everyone's talking about the fact that guy lost as opposed to that guy won. Yeah. That's just the nature of who he was fighting.
Here's our next question. Right. Where does Rashad Evans go from here?
Man, I always feel weird about, yeah, you should retire and stuff. And it's weird with Rashad because he's not getting knocked out at this point. He did get knocked out by Glover Teixeira. Mm-hmm. Then he comes back against Daniel Kelly. And then, of course, this fight.
Glover Teixeira knocks out everybody, so I'm not.
It's just this is a different one because like we saw with BJ where he was getting beaten up and looking slow. But this one he's not getting beaten up. He just doesn't look like himself. He looks like a shell of his former self. He can't pull the trigger. He's slower.
So let's not go to retire, not retire, because I agree. It's a touchy thing. But how about where would he match up? Who would be competition at this point? Where would we see Rashad next? Who's like a viable opponent?
Honestly, I don't feel comfortable even talking about that. If you look, I don't know what Rashad's financial situation is. He's working for Fox. I know he does a little work for CBS. At this point, do I want to watch Rashad Evans fight? I really like him. I respect him. I think he's a good human being. I don't see a championship in his future. I don't see big money fights in his future. So I hope that he finds peace and is able to kind of focus on the TV stuff and whatever. To sit there and look through the rankings and the division, to me, is just like, I mean, on a day where we're talking to Ian McCall about his brain and Gilbert about, seeing things on Twitter and scrolling through them because he doesn't want to face reality, and Pat Barry, like, sometimes I will be honest, you're sitting here and you're like, what are we doing? What are we watching? What are we supporting? What are we, you know what I mean? Like, this is serious stuff. And there was a great line, I can't find it now, but in that Conor McGregor piece about flying over Sonny Liston's grave and something about Sonny Liston and his death and what he said about, old fighters dying. I could look for it when you're looking at the next question, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to say, Rashad, you're making a mockery, but it's weird to see this happen in front of you. Rashad Evans was a champion not that long ago. He was the guy not that long ago.
But I feel like this is a conversation we're continuing to have, and not just Rashad. Like, this is the type of thing that, now the sport is old enough. The sport is at a point where this is a conversation to have. There was a time where the fighters who, we grew up watching were not on the downside of their career. We're still in their primes. Now we're having to face that reality because the sport is so young. It's finally reached a point where some of these guys are now reaching the end of their careers. And I think, there's no right answer. Like, maybe it's not the time or place to look at a list and say these are people could fight, Rashad could fight. But I do think, there's viable options out there if he wanted to continue fighting with Bellator, or, somebody lower in the rankings. I don't necessarily think that we're at the point where I'm concerned for Rashad, but he, clearly this is the twilight of his career, and I think, he'll make ultimately the best decision for himself. But he's got a lot of other things going, which is great.
I know his team thinks that he could still do it, but it is hard to watch. I mean, that's Rashad Evans, tough winner, champion. This is what was written in that story, Wright Thompson. He said that Conor McGregor's flight into Vegas took him directly over the parched cemetery where Sonny Liston is buried beneath fake flowers after dying broke and an alleged junkie. Liston said once, quote, "Someday they're going to write a blues song just for fighters. It'll be for slow guitar, soft trumpet, and a bell," end quote. And so Sonny Liston was a legend if you don't know him. And I'm not saying that this is what's happening to Rashad, but sometimes you think about, man, could you imagine like the highs of highs, selling out arenas and you're on top of the world, you got the belt, and then...
And Pat Barry spoke to that pretty poignantly about talking about how to replicate that high, and it's impossible to do.
That was some intense stuff with Pat.
Baby Assassin, Brandon Moreno. Where does he go from here? And Alexa Grasso. I think if I was to encapsulate both of those, I would say that both looked decent, gave good accounts of themselves.
Yeah.
But
do you think Ronda won the fight? Randa Marcos?
Randa Marcos? Yeah. No, I don't. I thought Alexa won rounds 1 and 3.
Yeah.
I thought it was a close fight, though. I think you could reasonably say that you could score it for Randa, but I scored it for Alexa. I also think you could reasonably say that there was a draw in the Moreno-Pettis fight.
Oh, wow.
Because I think round 1 was 10-8. Right on the border of 10-8, 10-9. And you could give him that 5th round. He had top control for quite a bit of it. I scored it for Pettis, but I don't think it's the type of fight where Moreno is not going to be able to bounce back and look impressive. Still only 25 years old. And Pettis has been in a similar place where, he looked this way against some higher level competition.
He didn't get smoked.
I think he'll be fine and great after this. I think he'll get right back on the horse.
No one expected Moreno to even be in this position at this juncture of his career.
He was an out of nowhere kind of guy.
First main event in Mexico City. The division is still shallow. But look, the story on Saturday was don't give up on the flyweights just yet. We had some great performances at 125. So no, he's still going to be in the mix. And this is the problem. Everyone was like, "Oh, Pettis isn't ready." Who's ready for DJ? Who could? And that's the problem at 125. Like Henry Cejudo wasn't ready. No one's ready for him. Like Ray Borg should probably have a few more fights. Like this doesn't happen in other divisions. Chris Carriazo, this doesn't happen. It's very rare. Like maybe Benavidez, maybe McCall, but for the most part, DJ has been fighting guys who aren't necessarily ready to fight him. And so part of me is like, I keep Pettis away from him. But part of me is like, there's no one else.
There's no one else, and Pettis looked good. Pettis overcame that first round and looked really, really sharp. We're not at a place where if you don't want to give Demetrius Benavidez every time he fights, then you have to give him people who aren't prepared. That's just the reality of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's DJ, it's Benavidez, and then it's everybody else. So if you don't want to give him Benavidez every time, you're going to have to give him a Pettis. You're going to have to give him a Borg. That's just the way it works.
Speaking of Twitter, by the way, Conor just tweeted.
What did he say?
Although I don't know if it's related. It was just a picture of him with Owen Roddy in the back, in the background, and it says, "You can run, but you can't hide."
I feel like that's kind of in line with what he's been tweeting lately. I don't know if that's...
No. And then, of course, everyone's like, Dad, King.
Yeah, the dad stuff for Conor. Which he is a dad.
Can you imagine? So, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
49-1.
Contender Series. Have you been impressed with it as an alternative to Tough?
Luke Thomas, biggest fan.
I think it's great. I really like the Contender Series.
I think that they are doing a great job of lining this up so when their TV deal is struck for 2019 and beyond, this replaces Tough. Tough is on its last legs.
Yeah.
It is played out, but they need another avenue to offer programming to networks and to develop new stars. This is a much more feasible way of doing that. And
I'll say this. I am interested in Tough more. Again, it's not going to get me to watch, but I'm interested in Tough more with a championship on the line. So I think that...
Yeah, but you can't beat live.
No.
There's something about live, right?
No, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Live sports is the only way sports is meant to be done.
Yeah. Just knowing that these things happened, these fights like 6 months ago or whatever it is, 4 months ago, you can't beat live.
Also, the package that they've put together for Dana White's Contender Series is good. Like, this isn't just, hey, we're going to throw out this little product. They're putting the value behind it.
Well, this is also an effort. Like, Sean O'Malley gets signed, and he's fighting on Fight Pass. Without this, just from Legacy, it's just a fight.
Yeah.
Everything's just a fight these days. Now, Sean O'Malley, after that, I want to watch him.
Same thing for Sage Northcutt on Dana White's looking for a fight.
So if you can fight, and like I said, I think Sean O'Malley himself has validated this. Mickey Gall.
Mickey Gall.
So this is a way of building stars early, getting people emotionally attached. I told you, the only thing I don't like about it is just it's a little uneasy, when you see people begging and things like that. That to me...
But it's a reality show. There has to be an element of suspense. I understand it, but I agree. But great production, great talent on the mic, great backstage interview. Every part of it, they've done it right. Obviously, I think there's been a bit of a swell of outrage in the MMA community against Snoop Dogg, who had some pointed comments for Cormier.
I mean, come on. Is it not deserved?
Absolutely deserved.
Stop with that. I mean,
my thing is like
TMZ of all people, like the media that's so friendly to the UFC and the UFC gives them all this stuff. Come on.
Yeah. Wasn't great out of Snoop, but hopefully he can redeem himself.
Nick Diaz even tweeting about Paulie Malignaggi and Conor now.
What is
Snoop's comments to me were so low and out of line and inconsiderate towards a guy who, I mean, enough with this.
Not the time. Not the time. Just go away with that.
And kudos to Ali Quinta for actually saying something.
Calling that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Biggest fight the UFC could make on the year-end card. What is it? Let's go within reason.
That's available to them?
That's available. I'll say this. Brock Lesnar, John Jones counts, in my opinion. You can say that.
Well, they better do it really fast. He better come out of retirement. No, I don't even think it counts because he needs 6 months.
Okay, so then what in a real life scenario, what is headlining year-end card?
The biggest fight that they can make right now.
What is the biggest fight they can make?
Conor versus Nate 3. That's the biggest fight.
Still, is there a point where that changes?
If Conor does really well and doesn't even win, but does really well on August 26th, that could do over $2 million in my opinion. And I believe that there's a kind of a deal, whether it's verbal, written, I don't know, but they're not letting him do this without him coming back. And they need him to come back. And so that's a massive one. Ronda returning would be massive, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
If Conor doesn't fare well, does that change that?
Of course. I mean, if he gets brutally knocked out, breaks his leg, I mean, that could definitely change.
No. Not that he can't make it to the fight. Does the interest in that lower?
We've learned. I mean, look at he got choked out by Nate Diaz. So and look what the next one did. It broke the record.
I think Conor, no matter what, will find a way to bounce back. That's what he does, and he's very good at taking his medicine and then finding a way to put himself back into the conversation. Can
I just say this? October, November, December, lining up to be incredible for the UFC. Without a doubt, their best 3 months of the year because you have at least these belts will be defended. Middleweight, they're hopeful for at least lightweight, if not interim. So I say at least interim, if not lightweight. Featherweight, they're hoping for bantamweight. They are hoping for strawweight. They are hoping for women's featherweight, crowning a 125 women's champion.
Every title.
So yeah, I mean, and we're talking like, Cyborg Home. We're talking about Cody Dillashaw. We're talking Bisping GSP. Who knows? They can figure it out with Stipe, maybe against Kane. Frankie versus Max Holloway. I mean, these are big fights. Khabib, Ferguson.
The one you didn't mention is the one that they specifically asked about in this question. Does John Jones versus Gustafsson happen end of year? And would they do that perhaps together with a Conor fight, or do you spread it out? Do you stack the deck for a year-end show and just
maybe you try to stack the deck to try to recoup some of your losses from earlier in the year?
Yeah. I could see, I mean, if you headline a show with Conor and Nate, under that, you go John Jones and Gustafsson.
That's the fight. That's John. Next. That's the one I want to see next. There's no doubt about it.
What does GSP do if he beats Bisping? Does he stay at middleweight, defend the title? Does he go down to 170?
I think GSP would fight Robert Whittaker.
Anderson.
I really do. I think if he looks phenomenal and feels good and feels healthy and feels strong and wins, I think he would fight Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker is a former welterweight. I mean, he's not Yoel Romero, this, You
mean,
former welterweight. Went up. And so, I think Whittaker becoming interim champ has opened the door for that. I think if he doesn't want to stick around and wins, I think there's an easy out. Whittaker becomes the full-time champ like they did with Jose Aldo.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of options open for GSP, clearly. He has to look good, though, in this first fight for us to explore them. Cain Velasquez, do we know anything further about him, when he might return?
Still not 100%. There was a report. And can I just say this? There are a lot of websites. There's a lot of, young journalists trying to make a name for themselves, trying to break news and things of that nature. I have no problem sourcing anyone. In fact, I want to source you. If you earned it, if you deserve it, I have no problem with it. If someone reports something about a fight, my job is to find out if it's true, to confirm it. I can't just go off every single rumor that's out there. So what do? Cain, Stipe, October 7th. So I call Cain's people, I call Stipe's people, and then I report what is said. Joanna Rose, November 4th. That's put out there by MMA Today. The first one that I mentioned, Cain Stipe, was put out by bjpen.com, Chris Taylor. And so Rose and Joanna, I spoke to Rose. You heard from her here. I spoke to Joanna, and they told me what they told me. That's what they want, but not offered, not done. So I'm not going out there trying to poo-poo anyone, trying to call you fake news, trying to disparage you or embarrass you or insult you. I'm just doing my job. This is a big part of why I want the MMA JA to be a thing. I want us to all respect each other and have this somewhat understanding that we're all doing this, together the right way, camaraderie of fellowship, all that stuff and more. And I think that sometimes other sites think that I'm trying to put them down or, crap all. No, that's not the case. Get all the scoops you want. It's not personal. We're all going to get our time. We're all going to get our stories. Do your thing. I'm not trying to put you down. In fact, every time I do it, I put the handle. I don't do what other people do and don't put the I'm trying to do it as kosher as possible here. So I just want people to know that when I'm going out and asking, it's just because that's what's required of me to go and confirm so that this news can, be put out on the site. I'm not trying to call you a liar.
Cain not back just yet. What about Yair Rodriguez? Somebody who
he was in Mexico City. He hasn't been away that long. It was mid-May.
Yeah.
I have not heard. I know that he's doing a little training with Israel Martinez, so maybe there's a reunion there, but I've not heard of any fights for Mr. Rodriguez.
Another one from our friend Jason Jones. Open scoring. How do you feel about open scoring? Do you think if we had open scoring...
I don't love it. Because if someone knows that they're up 3-0 and it's a 5-round fight, they might coast. You know what I mean?
At their own peril.
At their own peril, but I honestly, of all the problems in MMA, I don't think this is one of them.
Yeah, maybe not. I kind of fall somewhere in the middle on open scoring. I see its benefits. I see its downsides. I see why the detractors would have a point. Ultimately, I could live with or without it. I would like to see when somebody's down or it's it's tied 1-1. I want them to give a better effort. I think that would be an interesting thing to see. But I'm okay without it. I would also be okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't protest, but I don't think that it is something.
You don't think it's necessary, for sure. Okay, this is our last question.
Okay.
What do you and I do right after the outro music plays and the cameras turn off?
Okay, well, you actually told me that I take off my headset too quickly and it makes
every
a little noise in the audio. So the second it's done where I say, peace, I'm out of here, I whip these bad boys off. Keep them on for
three beats for me.
Yep. I do that. I usually go to the restroom, and then sometimes there's an ad that I have to read after the fact. Someone's calling me right now. Is there an ad today?
There is.
Damn it. So I'll read that ad, and then
you mean thank you to the advertiser for this week's show.
And then I will make the journey home. And one thing about Monday nights at home, the best night of the week. I know people hate Mondays. I love Mondays because Monday is like my Friday night for the typical 9 to 5er, because I don't have to worry about booking this show for the next at least couple days. So Monday night, I eat like a madman. I am so hungry. I've just been sitting down talking for the last 5 hours and 40 minutes, and I will thank Mr. Malinaji.
Cut some of that out for Paulie.
So I eat like a madman, and then I usually fall asleep relatively early. I like watching the NBC News. Maybe I'm going a little TMI, but I tape the NBC News 6:30 every night, and I'll watch that with my wife. I've been watching the Defiant ones on HBO. I don't know if you have seen that, but it's
not familiar with it.
It's actually a recommendation of my friend Pete Carroll and colleague. It's about Dr. Dre and his empire and Jimmy Iovine. I highly recommend it. 4-part series. I definitely fell asleep in the middle of watching it on Friday. That's typical. But these are some of the things I like to do, and of course, try to make it home in time to see my kids. I don't know if that will be possible this time, but my son has been peeing a lot in the bed, my middle son, so it's been a little challenging, only because there's just a lot of pee in the morning in the bed. So this is the second.
I think they met like right after the camera shut off, but that was great.
Am I saying too much?
That was fantastic. Right. What a show. I think everybody got what they wanted out of that.
Yeah.
How about Pat Barry? How about Paulie Malinaji? How about everybody we had?
I mean, I think we had a feeling that something was up when I'm like, "Hey, Ian, how are you?" And he's like, "Don't ask me that."
Yeah,
right. The first question of the day.
It started with the right tone.
Gosh, what a show! All right,
that's it, people.
Thank you, New York Rick. Thank you to everyone in the back for staying around a little longer. I promise I don't try to do this. I just I try to put on a great show, and I think we have done that today. An emotional roller coaster, an exhausting show, but this is a memorable one. This is one that I will never forget. You can hit my music. Yeah, I think it did start with that. Hey, Ian, how's things? Not great. Don't ask me why. All right. I did not expect that. Is there anything else I didn't get to? I have a whole list of things. I'm going to Las Vegas on Thursday, short trip, open workouts, media day. I've never been to one of these boxing ones, so I'm looking forward to that. Like I said, Floyd on Thursday, Conor on Friday at the UFC Performance Institute. How fun is that? Glover Teixeira versus Misha Serkinov was announced. Nate Marquardt versus Cesar Muchanch. Whole bunch of fights added to UFC 216. You get the drill. You've been following along. What a show. Thank you so much to everyone who stopped by. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I love you all. Thank you very much, Ian McCall. Best of luck to him. Sincerely hope that he's able to find peace, health, and happiness in whatever it is that he wants to do. And of course, good luck to him with his new business venture. Thank you very much to Luke Rockhold. Good luck on September 16th. Thank you very much to Andre Berto. How fun was that? Great insight. Last man to fight, Floyd Mayweather. And we just found out that he was asked to spar and he held back. Thank you very much to Gilbert Melendez. Good luck as he drops down to 145 against Jeremy Stevens on September 9th. Thank you very much to Volkan Ozdemir. Congrats to him. Thank you very much to Paul Felder for stopping by. Thank you very much to Pat Barry and Rose Namajunas. And of course, thank you very much to one Paulie Malinaji. Can't thank him enough. Back next week, same time and place. Until then, I say peace. Somebody.